I believe you can have it all and you do not have to struggle to get it. If life feels hard, your tasks seem impossible, or you just don't like the options laid out before you, I promise you there's a better way. My name is Melanie McSally and I welcome you to the WyzeCast Show. Today's guest is Duncan Bhaskaran Brown, who uses his gifts and wisdom to help himself and others walk through the challenges and live and lead life with joy. He's here today to teach us about the power of Morris dancing and how we might use it to find our better way. So welcome, Duncan.
Hello. Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to having a bit of a chat.
I sense an accent there. Where are you from?
So I'm from, well, it's just outside of Oxford in the United Kingdom. But what I found out is if you say Oxford, everyone thinks you're really smart.
Well, you are.
Well, yeah, that's true, isn't it? So yeah, I'm from Oxford.
Well, you're on the WyzeCast show, so you must be wise.
Yeah, and somebody said that to me the other day at the end of one of my sessions, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty much the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me." So yeah, if they're to be believed, I'll go with it.
All right, so you're here to teach us about Morris dancing and how we might find our better way with it. So let's just start with the layman's term. What is Morris dancing?
So Morris dancing is really just a kind of like folk dancing. So it's the kind of thing that really you find all over the world. But of course, England has its own specific traditional way of folk dancing. And that's what I do. I think the best way to imagine it is um, if you're in the village where Downton Abbey is filmed, where I was actually there the other day, and you got a bunch of guys all dressed in white. They got like silly hats on with flowers around the hats. They got ribbons. They got bells on their legs. They've got henkeys, and they're doing a kind of energetic, sort of flashy looking dance. That's Morris dancing. I'm not entirely sure what picture your listeners have in their head now, but something like what you're thinking, I imagine.
Well, I think towards the end of the series, or maybe it's in one of the follow-up movies, there is actually a scene with a bunch of people dressed in white dancing. So that's the image that popped into my head.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly it. Yeah.
It was something like either they were going to play cricket or they were doing some sort of festival and they were having dancing or something. It was something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Morris dancing is often associated with particular times of the year and particular events. So when I was, well, Bampton is the village where Summer Downton Abbey was filmed, and I was dancing there couple of weeks ago for Whit Monday, which is the Monday after Whitsun. And Bampton always have their big day of dance then. We have ours the closest Saturday to the 19th of June, because that was when Abingdon had its horse fair. We haven't had a horse fair for some time, but who's counting?
Well, there's a lot of traditions that are still in place today that aren't associated with the thing that started them in the first place.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I do. I mean, sometimes it's very cute to do things, even though the original reason that you were doing them is long forgotten. Although sometimes it's very annoying.
Okay, so we had a lengthy chat about Morris dancing before we came on this recording, and we were talking all about personal growth and different ways that you could use Morris dancing to find your better way. And there's a lot of reasons that people tune into this show. They're usually looking for something. Maybe they're overcoming a challenge, or they are looking for abundance, or they're looking for love, or whatever the case may be, a career purpose. So, in some of those topics, like how would somebody use Morris dancing to navigate that path?
Well, I mean, look, there are a number of different aspects that you can take from it. I mean, I think probably the most important one was the one you mentioned right at the start of the show, joy. It's just enjoyable dancing, and I know not everybody is necessarily blessed with my springy legs, but I think everybody can move to the rhythm of the music one way or another, even if it's just kind of, bopping your shoulders a little bit. And I think that moving to a rhythm is just innately enjoyable. That's why, we have been dancing as a species for millions of years. I think way back when we was Australopithecus, I think we were probably still dancing. So it's a very old and important part of human life, and it's very very enjoyable. And I think the big lesson that I learned from Morris dancing about changing what you do is if you enjoy it, you'll keep doing it. If it is annoying, there are things that can motivate people to do annoying stuff, but it will only get you so far. If you want to make the most out of life, you want to be doing something that is actually enjoyable, or at least be able to connect it with something that is enjoyable. Because I do not enjoy doing my tax return, but I do understand that that is a fairly nice problem to have, isn't it? And it is, a part of it. So, you know what I do enjoy doing my tax return. I enjoy hitting send. At the end, when you hit the button to submit it, that's one of the great feelings. So yeah, look, I mean, there is joy in everything, isn't there? You just sometimes I think we really need to kind of look for it, seek it out, and understand that it is one of the best weapons we have at our disposal.
Yeah. Well, for me, the joy is in the mystery of how can I ensure a return rather than a payment, with my tax returns. And I usually, here's my secret tip to bringing joy to tax returns. You ready for this?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't realize I was going to get some bonus detail. This is great.
Yeah. Go somewhere amazing. So I usually do my taxes poolside in the Caribbean.
Yeah. That could work. And as you're working, it's deductible, isn't it? So nice. Yes. So, funnily enough, I wrote a haiku about this recently. You know, what is it? Do like chocolate, do not like counts, budget and eat chocolate. That pretty much sums up my attitude to making myself do financial stuff. So long as I can have chocolate covered almonds, I'm more than happy to sit down and do the finance stuff. And that's what I do. My wife and I, when we do the family budget, I often try and go somewhere nice, not quite the Caribbean, but I go to a different coffee shop and I get myself a nice cup of tea or something like that. I know now I sound like the total British cliche, don't I? But I mean like the really fancy, expensive Moroccan mint tea or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and turn it into a treat.
yeah. Well, the Caribbean's a little closer to me than it is to you. So,
Very true.
whatever your Caribbean is. Um, there was something you said earlier that I wanted to circle back to when we were talking, oh, joy. So we were talking, you were talking about enjoying everything that you do and dancing and things like that. And so, but let's just say for argument's sake, you have a job that you hate, right? And Morris dancing, sorry, this wasn't where I was going, but I'm gonna go with it now. Um, we're on this thread, so let's go. So, how can you use Morris dancing, let's say as a hobby or as, like a way to infuse joy into a situation that maybe you can't get out of for whatever reason and it's not bringing you joy.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's sort of a macro and a micro way of doing that, isn't there? I mean, if you look at it from the big picture, let's say you don't like work, but you do like dancing. Morris dancing. salsa, whatever. You know, much is work the price you pay to do the dancing? You know, how much is that something that's actually enabling you to do it? Because if you see it like that, it puts it in a different light, doesn't it? And I mean, I'm sure your listeners have heard of Viktor Frankl, amazing Austrian psychologist, got ended up in the concentration camps during the Second World War. Wrote a very, very influential book about it called Man's Search for Meaning, which kind of boils down to you do get to choose how you feel about things, and that is the last right that we have. That was what he concluded. The one thing that the Nazis could not take from him was his ability to choose his attitude towards stuff. And I sort of think it's one thing for me, you know, a reasonably well-off white guy to tell you that. But, I think if he, in just about the worst situation we can think of, was able to actually choose how he responded to the things that were in front of him, then we all can. I'm not saying it's easy, but we can choose how we respond to things. And if we these ways of seeing it, like say, you know, I don't like the work that I'm doing, but the work that I'm doing allows me to dance, to look after my family, to do whatever is important to us, then it puts it in a completely different light. And we are able to choose a different way of interpreting that. And I mean, that's sort of like reframing it in a big way, but I mean, just in a small way, there's always these little tricks that you can do, can't you? I mean, dancing is a great example. You do look a bit odd if you end up dancing in the office, but if you work somewhere, like if you're working from home, it does work out quite well. Or if you work in an office on your own, or there's nobody else around at work, why not? When you finish the task, have a little dance, have a little boogie, stick the stereo on, have dance breaks. They're amazing. I mean, I can get quite dull when it comes to talking about breaks, but breaks are enormously important. And that's, not my opinion. There's tons of science that backs it up, particularly if you can get a little bit of movement into your break. It will, improve your mood. It'll actually improve your productivity. So when you're dancing past your boss's office and he gives you a funny look, you can just say, well, I'm improving my productivity. Duncan said I'm doing a better job. So yeah, they won't complain at all, will they? And of course, it doesn't have to be dancing. There are lots of small things we can do that are, slightly physical, raise the heart rate a little bit, get those, happy neurochemicals pumping. Juggling is another good one. Just going for a walk. But as we were discussing before we got on air, I live in the UK where it rains all the darn time, so it's not always easy to go for a walk. But yeah, I mean, anything that you can do that is slightly physical once you've finished a task, give yourself a little reward. Give yourself a reward that gets the energy going and improves your mood.
Okay, so even though you were talking about different ways to shift your perspective and get up and move, and didn't explicitly say it, I want to come back to it because there's a lot of like personal growth and strategic things that you can do that you indirectly mentioned, like if you're in a meeting and it has gone sideways and there's cross chatter that's not positive, a lot of times just getting up and moving changes your perspective, and it also shifts the mood. And sometimes people forget why they were upset, and sometimes they don't, but it just gives a different perspective, and it can lighten the air, and it can open up lanes of communication. So, is Morris dancing a line dance, a partner dance? Is it something like, you know, that the electric slide where people could just like take a minute and do some kind of something in the boardroom?
Yeah, so we do, broadly speaking, what two different types of dancing. One would be set dancing, so you'd have a group of people that would be typically six, but it doesn't have to be, and they would typically be in two lines of three facing each other, and then the six of them move in different ways to create different figures. So obviously it's a bit harder because you haven't got, you're like, right, everybody, come on, up you get. We're all going to do the Shepherd's Hay. Um, that might not work so well, but there's also another kind of dancing which are called jigs, which are generally done on your own or in pairs. Or so the side I dance with Abingdon Traditional Morris, we do a solo jig for, it's never more than about never less than about three people. Sometimes we'll do it with six people, and it's just kind of a bit of a joke. But yeah, so you absolutely can do it on your own. You can, but I mean, I just, even if you don't know anything about Morris dancing, you can just move, can't you? You can boogie, stick on some music, get the blood pumping. That's what it's all about.
Do oh, what's that dance where everybody gets in a line and they, just move? It's not, yeah, anyway, you know what I mean. It's
Not the
like,
Macarena. That's
no, no, no. People like
no.
the conga. You
Oh, the
can,
conga. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, actually, so there are some amazing sort of folk dance traditions from sort of Bulgaria, Turkey, that sort of that part of Europe, which is kind of like lower Eastern Europe. And they're not the conga, but you do them in a big snaky kind of line. And they are so much fun. And you can, yeah, you get when when I speak to big audiences, I do quite like to get everybody to stand up, and you kind of link arms. You can link pinkies as well. That's the other. That's quite a good way of doing those dances, and they're quite nice, easy step dances. You go like one step to the side, one step to this, and then the nice kind of easy stuff. But people absolutely love doing them. And do you know what? I think sometimes people love getting them wrong more than they love doing them. So yeah, yeah, yeah. The conga, whatever works for you.
yeah. And that was going to be my original point where that I forgot what my train of thought, which is, um, I grew up in Boston and I worked at Berklee College of Music for a little while, so I can definitely attest to the fact that there are some people who don't have rhythm. But even if you don't have rhythm and can't bop to the beat, you're still bopping it to some beat. And if it's
You
not the
but yeah,
right
you
beat, it's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Everyone dances to their own rhythm, and that's fine, my friend. Yeah, so as it happens, my daughter had a ballet recital last night, and she's 10, and she's like the older one in the class. So most of them are younger than her, and some of them were sort of a little bit less on the beat, shall we say. But they were enjoying themselves, and they were trying, and they were learning something, and they were, I think one of the big problems that we have is we are so disconnected from our bodies, and they're learning to use their bodies and to connect to it. And I mean, I think, I love ballet and everything, but I think working out precisely where to put your toes is perhaps going a bit too far. But still, does it does it matter whether you dance to the beat? No, it matters whether you enjoy yourself and whether you're getting any kind of benefit from it. And yeah, like I say, there are lots of benefits to dancing.
Have you ever used Morris dancing to like help somebody overcome a challenge or work in leadership or, those kinds of.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I spend some of my time doing these days is talking about um, how you can learn lessons from Morris dancing around leadership. I mean, what I tend to talk about more are the world records that I've set in Morris dancing. So it's about a month ago now. I set the most recent one. So I danced 187 and a half miles in 7 days. And that was, of course, quite a big project. So there was, there's an awful lot of leadership lessons there about how, we were very deliberate about using joy and celebration to get people on board with what we were trying to do, to, share our social media, but also to put some money in the bucket. So there's that. There's lots of things about collaboration and the way you create the environment for people to excel in. And we were very kind of deliberate, not really telling people exactly how they should be doing things, but just discussing an outcome with them, and us all working together to create that outcome, rather than telling people what they should be doing, but rather giving them ownership. So yeah, I mean, it's a very fruitful ground in terms of the sort of training and speaking and coaching that I do. But in terms of overcoming problems, one of the reasons why I got ended up talking about Morris dancing so much is because about just over 11 years ago now, I stopped drinking. And not everybody, but quite a lot of people do tend to associate Morris dancing with drinking. It is something that happens often in pubs. And, some of my fellow dancers do definitely like a drink. And I used to drink quite a bit, and that's arguably one of the reasons why I started in the first place. Anyway, when I stopped drinking, I wasn't entirely sure whether I would enjoy dancing. I wasn't entirely sure whether I should continue or what I should do. But I'd sort of committed to going to a couple of things, and I didn't want to let the guys down, so I went along, and I really enjoyed it. It's like it was amazing. And I very quickly realized that actually it wasn't about the beer. It was always about the people. It was about the places we went. It was about the things that we did. It was about the experience, the environment that we created. And yeah, no, ultimately it was about dancing, because you do quite like dancing. And that sort of really changed my perspective on things, because I think often we do things together and we think one thing causes the other. But it's not always causation, is it? Sometimes it's correlation. They are just two things that are happening at the same time. They're not half as related as we think they are. And that's something that I've used extensively in my coaching, over the last sort of 10 plus years, helping people to understand the difference between one thing causing another and the two things just happening simultaneously.
Yeah, great lesson. And I want to separate the two because they seem quite different. So in the first one, you're talking about leadership and specifically, your world records. And I have to imagine that there's also this huge component of endurance, which can correlate to teams on projects that span a long period of time, and like how to keep people motivated, but also how to keep them taken care of, so literally maybe, like food and nourishment and rest and all the things. Um, so yeah, why don't you talk about that for a little while?
Yes, my blisters are a rather good metaphor, I suppose, for what's happening to your team over time. Yeah, I mean, I think that y- resilience and optimizing what you do are so incredibly important, and we naturally tend to let things go when times get difficult. So most people do things that are good for them and help them and support them. They get sleep, they eat food. Um, it might be argued that some people could do with getting better sleep and eating better food, but still, we look after ourselves. We hydrate, we eat food, and we sleep. But the problem is, the more the pressure comes, the more those things tend to slip. They tend to be the first things that slip. But really, what I have learned is that they absolutely should be the last things that slip. And if you can really kind of automate them and create very strong pathways associated with those habits, then you can actually continue to do them despite how hard it gets. So I, the example that I often sort of end up talking about is, look, I did a lot of time in ice baths over, my endurance thing because they really, really work. They make a huge difference to muscle recovery. And when you're dancing for, 20 plus, 30 plus miles a day, then you need all the recovery you can get. And I did not want to get into the ice bath on day 6. In fact, I was feeling quite cold. It hadn't been a particularly cold day, but I think I'd basically got to the point where I was really like abusing my body so much it was rebelling. And it was just like, I'm sorry, I do not have the calories to heat you anymore, Duncan. You're just going to have to be cold. So I did not want to get into that ice bath, but I did because I just, that habit was so ingrained. I'd been doing it for so long. I'd been doing it so consistently that I did it even though my teeth were chattering after a couple of minutes. And I still stayed in there for the full 15 minutes. So, yeah, I think we need to be really clear that resilience comes from, strong pathways that lead to consistent habits. And you've got to get good at it during the good times, because if you do, then you will continue to do it when times get hard. I think you can probably sum it up in 4 words: train hard, dance easy.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm totally on board with you. I was an endurance athlete. Um, and I was an endurance athlete coming into owning my own business. So I attribute my uh stick to itness. The fact that I'm still here 7 years later, my business is turning 7 this month, next month rather. Um, because I was an endurance athlete. Because I remember those early years and the roller coaster and the like, the extreme highs and the extreme lows, and not knowing how long the valleys were going to be and what have you. And I remember thinking I wouldn't make it through this if I didn't have the habit of being an endurance athlete, if I didn't know how to like have the grit and have the stick to itness and all of those things. So yeah, I'm totally with you on the habit forming and
Yeah.
also the habit forming in something that brings you joy.
Yeah, look, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the only thing I would say is, you know what? These days, I think it's a bit of a roller coaster trying to have a job, isn't it? I think you know, look, the world, sadly, is an excellent training ground for grit, isn't it? Because it does chuck stuff at you. There is a lot of hard things that everybody has to put up with. And, you know, part of it is it comes back to that idea of reframing it. Yeah, look, you could tell yourself you're the most unlucky person in the world and all of this terrible stuff is happening to you. Or you could tell yourself that you are very, very strong and that is how you have got here today. Look, I had a session full of people yesterday and they had a lot of problems. They were struggling, but it was abundantly obvious how much power there was in the room. My job really was to try and help them see their own power, that they'd got through so much between them, that, they're genuinely superheroes.
Yeah, well, when things are bleak for one reason or another in a challenging state, it's hard to see the good in it. You have these horse blinders, so it's great to like take a step back and maybe have somebody else take that perspective and that's what you are providing for them is that outside
Yeah,
perspective to say, hey, you guys are actually amazing.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, I mean, I think it is difficult to take a step back, and it is difficult to sort of actually find the space to think about things. Because so much of life now is just bang, 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 get it done. And there is no time and there is no space. to actually sit down and think about what's going on. But the only way you are ever going to improve your life is by spending some time contemplating what is going on. And the more we can provide that environment to each other, the more we can offer each other the simple gift of listening, the more I think, we will be able to realize how far we have come.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the tricks that I use a lot of times is like, how can I look through this? How can I prove myself right? Or from the perspective, or prove them right from the perspective of it being a winning situation. So, if if my bank account is empty and I can't pay my bills and I don't know where my paycheck is going to come from or whatever. It's like, well, how can I, like, what perspective will allow me to feel rich and abundant? Like what lens do I need to look for?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, look, I am a big fan of Lakshmi or Robin Sharma, depending on how you look at it, I suppose. But the idea that wealth is far more than money and abundance is far more than money. And, I, I do all right, pay the bills, no wolves at my door, but I am not rich by uh, the standards of the country I live in, I suppose, globally. I clearly am in the upper echelons. But by the standards of the country I live in, I'm not particularly rich financially. But I wouldn't swap it because I've got a wonderful family and I enjoy what I do and I get to help people. And I'm incredibly lucky that I get to go and dance whenever I want to. I have a lot of fun and I have a lot of joy, and that's the width that money can't buy, isn't it?
You're putting the value on the things that matter.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It's where it always was. It's just, you know, there are certain mechanisms out there that are trying to convince you that you'll never be happy unless you buy this car or this brand of paint or these shoes or etc., etc., etc.
So earlier you were talking about challenges and how navigating challenges through Morris dancing, and you also were just talking about giving yourself some space and taking a breath. And some people in the world they just wouldn't call themselves meditators. And so taking a breath and taking a moment and allowing yourself to like let things in, they might not resonate with that. um, I don't know if you found this, but I've also found dancing can do that for me because it makes me not think about whatever it is that I'm stuck on. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely see where you're coming from. Um, there are certain times when there is almost nothing but the dance, and that's a sort of true meditative state, isn't it? In fact, you can use anything to meditate, can't you? You can eat in a way that becomes meditation if you just concentrate on the food and enjoy the food and sense the food and don't allow thoughts outside of the present to creep in. So yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, again, there's a fair bit of research out there about how beneficial dancing is for you psychologically, and there's always some discussion about what's actually causing it. Is it simply the physical aspect of it? Is it just because you're getting some exercise? Is it because listening to music is, enjoyable, or is it something else? And I think a big part of that something else is definitely the fact that it really forces you to do two things. One is to be present in the moment and to really focus on what you are doing right now. And then the other one is actually reconnecting with your body, which is something I think we absolutely miss out on. And so yeah, I don't think it's just meditation. I think it's kind of yoga as well.
Well, so I also think it's a bit of hormones like endorphins and all the things. There's other ones too. Um, Serotonin and all the things. You get dopamine, you get all these different injections. And so it's not like, I mean, you can be meditating in the dance, but for me personally, it's more of like the aftermath of the rush of dancing. It's like you like clean out, you burn out your system through all these like dopamine and serotonin and all the things, and then you're driving home or you're walking home or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get solutions in your head. And that's what I mean by it could be meditative or it could replace meditation if you don't think that's for you. And it's kind of like the runner's high or whatever, call it the dancer's high.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I think there's an awful lot in that, isn't there? That increase in flexible thinking and creativity, but partly it comes from not shoving things into our head, which is a problem at the moment because we used to have lots of time for our mind to wander, didn't we? We used to think about stuff whilst we were doing the washing up. We used to think about stuff when we were walking the dog. We used to think about stuff when we were in the shower. But nobody does the washing up anymore because they've got dishwashers. They all listen to podcasts when they're walking the dog, and you can even get a TV for your bathroom, can't you? So when is the time that we get to just mull stuff over and to just think about things and to just kind of let our minds wander? We've totally removed that from the world. And this, look, a while back, I was absolutely guilty of that. I mean, I still listen to a lot of audiobooks, probably 70, 80 a year, something like that. But I listen to less now because I realized that if you just constantly trying to cram stuff into your head, you never have any opportunity to digest it. It's a bit like your stomach, isn't it? You've got to leave time between meals to allow yourself to digest stuff. And I think dancing being a very kind of somatic bodily activity, it gives our brain a chance to recharge, mull stuff over, your subconscious gets working on it. And yeah, absolutely. You're walking back, you're driving home and you go, that could work.
Yeah, and I mean, the superconscious brain does not forget a thing. So you're taking all that information in, and it literally just becomes information overload. And you have all these things that, might be creating beliefs that aren't serving you. Like you might be bringing in all this information that might not be serving you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Nancy Klein, and she's quite keen on calling them assumptions. Because sometimes I think when you say to somebody, "I want to smash your beliefs," they start to think you're out to get their deeply held worldview and stuff like that. But no, I mean those little assumptions that we make about. Well, I was saying it earlier. There, there are plenty of people in this world that want you to assume that if you have more followers on Facebook, you'll be happier. And there are some people that, that assumption really does ring true. Um, but is it true? Or is it just an assumption? It's not like Isaac Newton's three laws of social media, is it? It's not like gravity. It is just something that's lodged in your brain. And look, if it's helping you, if it's helping you live the life you want to live, then I am more than happy to let you keep your assumptions. But if it is holding you back and if it is making you miserable and if it's stopping you doing the stuff you want to do, then, you know, with all gentleness, kindness, compassion that I can muster, I really do want to smash your beliefs.
Well, I left social media 4 years ago, um, in posting for my business because I was like, this is definitely not bringing me joy, and I don't think it's bringing me business either. And so I actually left to prove whether or not it was bringing me business, like did my business take a hit? It did not. It did not. And let me tell you, 4 years later, I haven't missed it a bit. But this podcast is my re-entry into social media with intention. So I don't have to scroll. I can just have lovely conversations and talk about the things that attract the people that I want in my universe.
Yeah, and I think that's the real value that I've got from social media is the people that I've met and connected with through social media. And generally, the value has come from taking it off social media. And sorry, Mr. Zuckerberg, but it's doing stuff like this. It's like I think we met on one of the platforms, didn't we? And therefore, that was a small light connection, and now we've spent some time together, and we've got a deeper connection, haven't we? And that's always been true for social media for me. It's not so much the broadcasting, it's the messaging, and ultimately collaborating, off the back of that messaging and doing things that are a bit more real and in person. I know we're on Zoom, but still it's a bit more face to face, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit. You did talk about this a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about how you got into Morris dancing.
So, it's pretty much 20 years ago now. I'm 19. I walked past a pub, and the guys were dancing outside. And I said to one of my friends, "Oh, Abingdon's got this great tradition of Morris dancing. Maybe I'm going to start dancing at some point. Who knows?" And then we walked off. We got a bit of lunch. We came back after lunch. We walked past. They'd finished dancing, and a guy I knew was dancing with them at the time, and he was like, "Oh, Duncan, come over here. Come over here." And I was like, "All right, hi Tony, how's it going?" He's like, "When are you going to start dancing?" And of course, my friend went, "Oh, it really wants to dance." So that was that. A week later, I was at a practice session. A week after that, I was at, the the big day of dance that we have, closest Saturday to the 19th of June. I danced for about all day. I think we started at 10, finished 10 in the morning, finished about 9 at night. So yeah, it was like a big solid day of dancing. Next day I couldn't move. But yeah, it was I really enjoyed it, and haven't left yet.
Nice. And then when did you start to like use it for business to like
Well,
incorporate?
look, honestly, it was a joke, really. So I'm really lucky to have some amazing friends who are, internationally renowned speakers, and they all have quite pretentious titles on their LinkedIn profiles. And it'll be like facilitator, trainer, master practitioner, international speaker, best-selling author, all of this kind of stuff. And I just thought, for a joke, I'd change my LinkedIn title to speaker, author, Morris dancer, just because I thought it was funny. And then what I started to notice was when I would do podcasts, or sometimes even when I was doing sales meetings, people would be like, "Oh, you're a Morris dancer. That's really, really interesting." And we'd end up talking more about Morris dancing than anything else. And I started to realize that actually it is a really good lens to look at human behavior through. So it sort of gradually became more and more a part of my business. And then a couple of years ago, I sort of thought, well, look, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it properly. And some of my friends are explorers and mountaineers and things like that, and they do all of these crazy adventure things, and quite frankly they all sound too terribly hard and cold and just like miserable. So I thought, oh well, look, I want to do something that's going to push me, but I'm not definitely not going to the Antarctic. You can forget that straight away. But so I'll just try endurance Morris dancing. So yeah, that became a thing. Broke a world record last year, did another one this year. Promised my wife I'm not doing any more in 2027, but who knows?
It's harder to be the spectator than it is to be the athlete slash dancer.
Yeah. I mean, my wife is amazing for many reasons. I mean, she she really, she has been on board with all of that, and yeah, she made tons of sandwiches, and I always say she made tons of falafel and jam sandwiches. But it's like I've got to be really clear about this. She made a lot of falafel sandwiches, and then she made a lot of jam sandwiches. It's not falafel and jam sandwiches because that would be horrible.
Yeah, that was my crinkled face. Like, that doesn't sound great.
Yeah, no, no, no. This is not my winning endurance technique. Falafel and jam sandwiches. No, it's just. I mean, I started to get sugar bored when I was training, and like you're kind of trying to eat the high calorie stuff, which is very sugary, and like relatively low fat, but I can only do that for so long. So I started eating a lot of hummus and falafel sandwiches as well. So. Yeah, that is a top tip, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the other top tip for endurance is like train your stomach to actually be
Oh
able
yeah,
to eat food rather than all those goo craps. All
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
sorry to goo, but it's too sweet
Yeah,
if you
well, look, as an endurance athlete that always has a set of hankies in his hand, I can tell you for free that getting energy gels on your hankies is a particularly horrid experience, and one not to be replicated.
yeah. Well, I I have my own feelings about those gels, period.
No, I'd say the only gels that I used during the week were some caffeinated ones because I didn't want to drink coffee because I do like coffee. I like coffee a little bit too much, maybe. But I found it a little bit annoying in terms of the hydration strategy if I drank water. That's all I don't want to let your listeners in too much to what I'm talking about, but yeah, it got in the way of the hydration strategy. So I started using the caffeine gels just for that kind of like little pick me up. A couple of those in the morning, but other than that, it was all real food.
Yeah, I mean, I could do a whole podcast on endurance tips, but we don't need to go there.
Buy the best trainers you can.
Well, for sure, for sure. I was a triathlete, so it wasn't all
Ah,
sneakers for me. Um,
yeah. So I was really lucky that so I had a really good support crew. And yeah, there was one guy who did pretty much all of it, and he did the logistics, and like it was an absolute rock. My friend John, I'm so massive respect to John for helping out. He really did a good job. But it varied from day to day, the people that were with me, as to who was available and how they could fit it into their diaries and stuff like that. But I did one day with a friend of mine who uh, is a Team GB triathlete for her age. So she's pretty good though. And I was like, wow, I'm kind of struggling to keep up with her. But we had a long conversation about particularly the bike section and how you've kind of cycling's weird, isn't it? Because you're like your legs are going 10 to the dozen, but you've got to keep your body very, very still. And positioning is very, very important. And I had a long chat with her. It was on the second day, and it made me think a lot more about my positioning and where my body was, and making sure that I was upright and that my back was in a good position, because I have it in the past had some problems with my back and I was a bit worried about it. And I think it was talking to Hillary and being much more conscious of it throughout the next sort of 5 days that kept my back in such good condition all the way through. So yeah, triathlon's very important part of my endurance Morris experience.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the positioning, is important. It's also, the bike is the longest leg. So it's strategic in the overall race. And I was a speed racer, so I did the Olympic distance most frequently, and then the half iron secondary. I did the half iron for fun, and I did the
Of
Olympic
course, of course.
for actual competition. So mine were like all out the whole time, but oftentimes my swim wasn't as strong as people who are native swimmers, and so I was usually coming from behind on the bike. And so the bike is you're like in this arrow position, so you're like condensed and like your diaphragm and your, everything is like scrunched up. But at the same time, you're like pedaling as fast as you can to make up and to go fast while trying to eat so that you don't have to eat on the run.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's challenge, but it's a fun little game in its own right, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I really got out of the training as much as anything. It's like sometimes it wouldn't work so well. Sometimes I would drink too much coffee and have problems with my hydration strategy. And it's all data, isn't it? And you're learning something, and sometimes you learn more by the mistakes you make than by the successes that you have. In fact, I know a few people who some things have come easy to them, and they've only got so far because they just found it too easy. And the people that kind of struggled with it at the start have surpassed them, a long time ago, because those struggles, that data you get from stuffing stuff up, it's the best of all, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, how can people find you if they want to work with you? What's the easiest way?
So the easiest way to find me is be able to spell Bhaskaran Brown, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to do in the world. But if you put Bhaskaran Brown into the internet, then I come up. You'll find lots of stuff about me Morris dancing. You might find my website. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. Always happy to connect with people. If you're really scared about uh, trying to take a run up at Bhaskaran, then just put 200 miles of Morris into your favored search engine, and all of the stuff about my most recent record breaking attempt will come up. And you can find out more about me and find me on the socials through that.
And we'll, of course, put the link at the bottom so they don't have to
Thank
figure
you
it
very
out.
much.
Awesome. So, is there anything else that you would like to talk about, whether it's about Morris dancing or leadership training or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one bit that we haven't kind of mentioned that much is community and people, and that's
Mhm.
the most important thing in the world. And if I could get people to understand one thing, it is probably that if your people are struggling, it's usually not because of the people. It's usually because of the system. And if the system doesn't fit the people, then the system is what needs to change. Because look, people can change, and sometimes people should. But in general, if everybody is struggling with exactly the same thing, it's the system, isn't it? And so many systems have been designed for reasons that do not suit human beings. And I wish we could all just be a bit more human about the way we design things and put stuff together. Because when people come together, they're capable of doing fantastic things, aren't they? And all of the support that I had during the last world record attempt, that was what got me through, wasn't it? The money, the money we made for charity was nice. The record's nice, but ultimately it's the people that count, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We just recently had someone from Scotland on to talk about Cali Club dancing,
Ah,
and he really dove into that same topic of community building and such. So, how are the two different, Cali Club dancing and Morris dancing?
well, so if I understand you correctly, Kaylee dancing is more dancing for you as an individual, isn't it? It's for you to have some fun. Morris dancing, we do enjoy it, but we actually try and put on a performance. So it's more of a show. So you would never really rehearse for a Kaylee. Whereas we do rehearse, and we practice, and we try and be entertaining, and we try and do things that are appealing to other people. And I think dance is very interesting that way. You can do it purely just for yourself, and you can do it purely to enjoy yourself, and you can do it purely just to entertain people, but don't. You've always got to enjoy it, and then hope that it's entertaining as well. But no, I mean, if anybody, uh, Kaylee's barn dances, anything like that, those participation dances, they're so awesome. Just go along. They are so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this community in both aspects because you go in and you're community building when you're just in it for the fun of it and dancing for yourself. And then you're community building because you indirectly talked about project management and leadership and team building and figuring out your role in the performance or the in the group and like what your role is, what your part is to play in the performance, how you work together and collaborate, how you support each other. I mean, you talked about so many dynamics things.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of human behavior that goes on in Morris dancing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. Well, is there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just, get back to where we started. Bring the joy, people. That's what it's all about. Put a smile on someone's face today.
Yep, live in joy. It's a great motto. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I've really enjoyed your wisdom, your expertise. So thank you, Duncan, for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much. You're very easy to talk to.
Oh, thank you. Of course, please, like, share, comment. Hype is the new thing. So if you're into the new latest and greatest features, please hype. Technology loves your attention too, and it pays it forward by sharing this video with those that need to see it. And so anyone who needs Duncan's message, it will get in front of them. So please do, if anything resonated with you, like, share, comment, hype, whatever floats your boat. And of course, if life feels hard, if your tasks seem impossible or you just don't like the options laid out before you, I promise you there is a better way. My name is Melanie McSally, and I will see you on the next